Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, back with another video. So yeah, I got another prediction video. Going to be talking about the upcoming fight that's taking place at heavyweight, which is going to be for the regular WBA title, which is a title that has become kind of a meme at this point in time. It's a title that whenever people hear about it, they just get really, really pissed off and they shake their head and they're like, why does this title still exist? You know, it's it's quite a funny situation, but yeah, this is a pretty bizarre fight. It's going to be happening in Bulgaria, and it's one that really, really took me by surprise, if truth be told. So, Manuel Charr has been somehow, I don't know how this happened, don't even ask me to explain it, because I wouldn't even know where to start, but Manuel Charr has been reinstated as the WBA heavyweight regular champion after Daniel Dubois, of course, lost to Usyk last year, and the title, I assume, went vacant. Somehow, I'm assuming that there was some contractual dispute or something like that, because after Manuel Charr won that title, there were several fights that were set for him to defend it, and somehow he ended up getting stripped. I think it was something to do with Don King. Don King scheduled a fight between Charr and Trevor Bryan. For whatever reason, the fight got cancelled. I can't remember why. And Charr was stripped of the title under, I think it was dubious circumstances, but I don't know why. He was stripped of the title, and after the Usyk versus Dubois fight, the title kind of went away. People thought it was going to be done away with, but no, they brought it back, and Manuel Charr was reinstated as champion. And as I understand it, he was ordered to defend it against a mandatory, but the mandatory that he had, I think it was Jarrell Miller at the time, refused to take the fight. So they replaced him with Kubrat Pulev, essentially. They brought in Kubrat Pulev, offered the fight to him, and yeah, he accepted the fight. So that's how this fight came about. It's an interesting fight, actually. You know, you got two guys who are from the same era, pretty much. You know, they're both pretty much coming towards the end of their careers. Both of these guys were, of course, fringe contenders during the Klitschko era, and they both obviously got a title shot against one of the Klitschkos, and both of them lost in pretty one-sided fashion. Vitali defeated Manuel Charr by a fourth-round stoppage in which what I believe was his first defeat, and yeah, that was Vitali's final fight over in Russia. And Pulev, of course, went on to fight Vladimir a couple of years after that, and got brutally knocked out in the fifth round. So both of these guys, during the Klitschko era, they were fringe contenders. Manuel Charr, of course, has had a very, very strange and very, very bizarre and very, very difficult to explain career since then. It's very, very strange because Manuel Charr, I would say he hasn't really done a whole lot since that fight against Vitaly Klitschko. I mean, he did have some wins. I mean, he beat a few journeymen, guys like Denis Baktov and Kevin Johnson, but pretty much every major fight that he had, he got beaten and beaten well. I mean, he was brutally, and I mean brutally, knocked out by Alexander Povetkin, and he was then brutally knocked out again by Myris Briadis, who was, of course, a cruiserweight who was competing at heavyweight. And he was even beaten in a close fight by Johan Duhaupas. So it seemed at that stage of Manuel Charr's career, he was basically done. Then, inexplicably, he got a shot at the vacant WBA title, the fight that they're going to be fighting for, the regular title, against Alexander Ustinov, who at that point in time was a world-ranked contender. I think he was like ranked number 1 by the WBA or something. And Charr ended up winning the fight, put in a pretty good performance, scored a knockdown, and won the fight clearly on points. Probably put in a career-best performance. Ever since then, though, it's been so weird with Manuel Charr because he's been able to stay relevant without really doing anything. And I remember Del Boy was talking about this a while back, a couple of years ago. He was talking about how Manuel Charr wasn't fighting anybody, but he was always in the news. He would always seem to pop up, and he was always like in discussion to fight somebody. Like there were talks for years of him fighting Anthony Joshua, talks for years of him fighting Tyson Fury. He always seemed to be in the discussion as a potential opponent, but none of the fights ever materialized. He was also set to fight Lucas Brown, I believe. That fight never happened. He was set to fight Fraser Kendo. That fight never happened. I think he was even set to fight Shannon Briggs, and that fight never happened. And he was, of course, set to fight Trevor Bryan. That fight never happened. So all these fights kept getting cancelled. And, of course, he was stripped under dubious circumstances after about 5 years of inactivity. And then he came out of nowhere, made a comeback, and fought a guy called Christopher Lovejoy. Now, Christopher Lovejoy was an undefeated guy. He had about 19 wins, but he had fought absolutely nobody. Basically had a career fighting nothing but jobbers over in Mexico. So and there was like hardly any footage of it, so it's dubious as to the validity of Christopher Lovejoy's record. And Charr took him out in 2 rounds in spectacular fashion, just a complete mismatch. And since then, he's had a couple of knockout wins against journeymen. He beat Nuri Seferi, I believe, in his last fight. So, yeah, Manuel Charr, just such a bizarre career, such a bizarre resume. Like one of these guys where, I mean, he really peaked with that Vitaly Klitschko fight. That was really his level. And you just wonder how he's been able to stay relevant and how he's been able to stick around so long in the heavyweight division with having really no career-defining wins at all, aside from that Ustinov fight. Now, Kubrat Pulev's had a much better career, even though he's never been world champion. Pulev's had a much better career than Charr has. He's fought much better competition. He aside from losing to Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua, he's pretty much won every fight. I know he had that controversial loss to Derek Chisora in the rematch. He won that fight. That was a absolute robbery. But, he fought several top-level European contenders. He beat Ustinov before Charr did, and in much better fashion. He beat him by knockout. He also knocked out Dimitrenko and guys like that. He beat Tony Thompson while he was still a ranked contender. Beat Chisora in the first fight. So he also beat Hughie Fury, again, another ranked contender. So he's had I'd say he's had much better wins and a much better resume than Charr has, and he's also been much more active over the years than Charr has. So even though Pulev's a few years older than Charr, I believe he's like 3 years older, I definitely expect him to be a lot more fresh and a lot more seasoned, but seasoned in a good way, than Manuel Charr. So, and you couple that with the fact that the fight's in Bulgaria, even though Charr is the champion defending the title, it seems to me like Pulev is the favoured guy, like it's kind of set up for him to get the win. So when I look at this fight, I only see it going one way. I only see one outcome, and that's I see Kubrat Pulev winning the fight by a wide unanimous decision. I don't think he will stop Manuel Charr. I know Charr has been knocked out a couple of times, and Pulev, he's got okay power, but Pulev's he's not that big a puncher. Like, he's a guy who can hurt you, but he's not really a finisher. Like, if you look at the Derek Chisora rematch, he hurt Derek Chisora numerous times in that fight. Had him badly stunned, had him on the ropes, like ready to go, had him gassed, had him just on the verge of being stopped. And I don't know, it's like Pulev just wouldn't push for the knockout. He just doesn't seem to have that finishing instinct. And it was the same when he fought Jerry Forrest, and the same when he fought Andrei Varshik. Varshik was down in that fight, he was hurt badly, he was gassed. And I honestly thought that Pulev could have taken him out, and he never really pushed for it. It was like he carried him. Again, it was the same in the Jerry Forrest fight. If you watch that fight, it seemed to me like there were numerous opportunities for him to take Jerry Forrest out, and he never went for it for whatever reason. So, yeah, I don't see Pulev stopping Charr. I think he'll win the fight, but I think he'll win it on points. So, yeah, for me, this is a pretty easy fight to call. I think Kubrat Pulev, even at 42 years old, I think he'll school Manuel Charr. I think he'll win the fight pretty easily on points. I just think he's the better athlete of the two, the better boxer, has the better resume, has looked better against the same opponent. And to me, he's been more active over the years. So, yeah, I think it favours Pulev, and he's fighting at home. So I'm going with Pulev by unanimous decision. That's how I see this fight. Thanks for watching, and God bless.